Shalom, I'm Rain Ben Yehuda, prophetess of Judah. I'm also known as Linda Denise Swain Shepherd. Now today I want to talk about spent prophecy. Now spent prophecy means that a prophet has prophesied an event that will occur. That event has occurred, so the prophecy has been fulfilled, and you can no longer use that prophecy and attribute it into modern times. Now a lot of people are doing that. They take out the old spent prophecy, dust it down, regurgitate it, and they're telling us that these things have not yet been fulfilled when they absolutely are. Now we can look at one example of spent prophecy, and we'll find that in the book of Deuteronomy 18:15 to 18. A prophet from your midst, from your brethren, like me, Elohim your God will establish for you, and to him shall you hearken. Now if we go straight on, carrying on from Deuteronomy 18, we go to 17, Deuteronomy 18:17 as well. Then Elohim said to me, they have done well in what they have said. I will establish a prophet for them from among their brethren like you, Moses, and I will place my words in his mouth. He shall speak to them everything that I will command him. So a lot of people attribute this prophecy to Mary's son in the New Testament. That's not so. Now we can see that by a process of elimination. So if we go to the book of Numbers, and let's start at 27. 15, I will go right through from Numbers 27:15 right through to 23. Moses spoke to Elohim, saying, my God, God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the assembly, who shall go out before them and come in before them, who shall take them out and bring them in, and let the assembly of Elohim not be like sheep without a shepherd. Now Elohim said to Moses, take to yourself Joshua son of Nun, a man in whom there is spirit, and lean your hand upon him. You shall stand him before Eleazar the Kohen and before the entire assembly, and command him before their eyes, and you shall place some of your majesty upon him, so that the entire assembly of Israel will pay him heed. Before Eleazar the Kohen shall he stand, who shall inquire for him of the judgment of the Urim before Elohim. At his word shall they go out, and at his word shall they come in, he and all the children of Israel with him, and the entire assembly. Now we can look at that prophecy, because obviously the prophecy said a son will be raised up from among your brethren, so obviously he'd have to be an Israelite from the children of Israel. And on top of that, Elohim has commanded Moses to lay his hands on Joshua son of Nun, so that his spirit can be transferred, because we also believe that the spirit is not just transferred by blood, but also by touch. Therefore you get the concept of healing hands. So that's not enough though, because you have to investigate, and you have to investigate thoroughly. So we have to look at, well, why would Joshua, of all the children of Israel, of all the 12 tribes, why would he be selected to stand before the Almighty and be that prophet as prophesied in the book of Deuteronomy? Well, let's go to Numbers 11. What we find is that Moses, as he took out the children of Israel, and he was recording the entire Shamash, it was a huge and a monumental work that most people will not realize. You read this Shamash today and you think, oh wow, but you don't go into how long it would actually have taken to write, because it would have been written in its original form by hand, no typewriters, no laptops, no computers. So it was a huge work, a monumental work. But on top of that, just imagine that you're doing this massive work, and all you're getting from the people that you're trying to help is ingratitude and contentiousness. And it is wearing, and it's negative, and this negative energy is always coming towards you, and it makes your job twice as hard. So we find that if we go to Numbers 11 right through to 17, let's hear what Moses had to say. Moses said to Elohim, "Why have you done evil to your servant? Why have I not found favor in your eyes, that you placed the burden of this entire people upon me? Did I conceive this entire people, or did I give birth to it, that you say to me, carry them in your bosom, as a nurse carries a suckling, to the land that you have swore to its forefathers? Where shall I get meat to give to this entire people when they weep to me, saying, give us meat that we may eat? I cannot carry this entire nation, for it is too heavy for me. And if this is how you deal with me, then kill me now, if I have found favor in your eyes, and let me not see my evil." So Moses was there reporting to Elohim that he was getting all this contentiousness and all these complaints from the people, because they couldn't understand that what he was doing was preparing a monumental work that wouldn't just last, say, 1,000 years, a millennium. This work that Moses was working on would last and still be valid to the very end of days. And yet they were, oh, I'm hungry, or they're fighting, or they're contending against him, as the assembly of Korah did, number 16. Or they raised up 250 men against him and said, who do you think you are, alleging to be this prophet of God? We're all, children of God, and he speaks to all of us, so, move over and let us take over from you. So Moses was facing all of this, and he had, as I said, this monumental work to achieve and to accomplish and to finish, all by hand, day after day. And I'm a writer myself, so I know I write by hand as well, and I normally have a permanent blister on my finger. So Elohim then said to Moses, "Gather to me 70 men from the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and its officers. Take them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. I will descend and speak with you there, and I will increase some of the spirit that is upon you and place it upon them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you, and you shall not bear it alone." So that 70 constitutes the Sanhedrin, the court of 70 of the children of Israel. So Moses had this amazing work to do, and all he got was complaints and contentions, and he was one person. Even if you sit from the crack of dawn until night, he still would not have been able to deal with all those complaints. And imagine if you are sitting from the crack of dawn until late evening, and every single person that comes up to you is with a complaint and with their ingratitude, because they cannot see that what you're doing is so extremely important. So all they have for you is their complaint, and it would be not just tedious, it would be a burden, because what can you do for all of them apart from what you are attempting to do that would be good for them in their day, but also for the generations until the end of days. So it was very hard for Moses, and he did want to have some help with that. So if we go straight through to Numbers, stay with Numbers 11, let's go to 28 to see why Joshua, son of Nun, was selected to be that brethren that would stand for the children of Israel after the prophet Moses died. We'll find that in Numbers 11:28. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of Moses since his youth, spoke up. ... there. Joshua had been with Moses since his youth. Now Moses was an extremely, supremely well-educated man, and Joshua, son of Nun, learned from a grand master, Eli, literally at his feet. So everything that Moses knew, and his thinking, his thought process, etc., was something that Joshua knew also, because he had been with him constantly. So if we go now through to the book of Joshua, number 1, and let's take it right through to about 9. Book of Joshua number 1 straight through to 9. It happened after the death of Moses, servant of Elohim, that Elohim said to Joshua son of Nun, Moses' attendant, saying, Moses my subject has died. Now arise, cross the Jordan, you and the entire people, to the land that I will give to them, to the children of Israel. Every place upon which the sole of your foot will tread, I have given to you, as I spoke to Moses, from the desert and this Lebanon until the great sea of the Euphrates River, and the land of the Hittites until the great sea toward the setting of the sun will be your boundary. No man will stand up to you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not release you, nor will I forsake you. Be strong and courageous. For it is to you who will cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be very strong and courageous to observe to do according to the entire Chumash that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not deviate from it to the right or to the left, in order that you may succeed wherever you will go. This book of the Chumash shall not depart from your mouth. Rather you should contemplate it day and night, in order that you observe to do all that is written in it. For then you will make your way successful, and then you will act wisely. Behold, I have commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not fear and do not lose resolve, for Elohim your God is with you wherever you go. So you can see that Elohim was saying that he would be with Joshua son of Nun exactly as he had been with Moses. So that was a spent prophecy. So when we're looking at the Deuteronomy 18, we see that we have a spent prophecy, because that prophet that Elohim promised to raise up for the children of Israel, like the prophet Moses himself, is Joshua son of Nun. And we know why Joshua was selected, because he studied with Moses since he was a child. Now most of the prophets, you will see, had studied for decades before the spirit of Elohim was poured upon them and they began their prophetic ministries. Isaiah, for example, prophesied for 20 years before the spirit of Elohim was poured upon him, and then he began to begin his prophetic ministry. So that's an example of spent prophecy. Another thing that we have is in the book of Jeremiah, and in fact we'll find the prophecy in Deuteronomy 28:68. And this also is a spent prophecy. Elohim will return you to Egypt in mourning. On the roads of which I have said to you, shall never see it again. Now, many translations have Elohim will return you to Egypt in ships. Now, how do we get to the word ships? The word ship in ancient Hebrew and the word sorrow or mourning is exactly the same word, oniot. So how do we know which one is being spoken of? That's pretty easy. Let's go to Jeremiah 43. Where you see the children of Israel had returned to Egypt in defiance of a commandment of Elohim that they should not go down to Egypt, and forced the prophet Jeremiah to take them there. We find that in Jeremiah 44:27. Behold, I shall be diligent towards them for evil and not for good, and all the men of Judah who are in the land of Egypt will perish by the sword and by the famine until they are annihilated. So there you have it. The children of Israel, in particular the tribe of Judah, forced the prophet Jeremiah to return them to Egypt, even after Elohim had commanded that we should not go up to there. So they had returned to Egypt in sorrow, obviously because they were being driven out of their land. Now, many people do know this, but some do not, but between Palestine and Egypt there's a porous border. There is no need for ships because you can walk right into it. So we believe, yes, that the oniyot that is being spoken of in the Hebrew scripture does mean in sorrow and in mourning. Now, no book makes this clearer than the book of Lamentations, also written by the prophet Jeremiah. You find that he uses that word oniyot in the book of Lamentations, Lamentations number 25. Now, when he uses it in Lamentations 25, it means sorrow and it means mourning. You also find the same oniyot, it being used in the context that it is used in the Deuteronomy prophecy in the book of Isaiah as well. So why some translations have the word ship, but some translations do have the word sorrow, and I think I've got one here. This would be the Revised English Bible, Deuteronomy 28:68. They have it in here. The Lord will bring you back sorrow into Egypt by the very road of which I said to you, you shall not see that road again. There you will offer yourself for sale as slaves to your enemies, but there will be no buyer. So that is it. You can see it here, the English Revised Bible, also with Apocrypha. They translated the word oniyot correctly. I also have a 100-year-old King James Bible, and the word oniyot is translated as sorrow in that one as well. So it depends on which translation you get. But and there's another reason I think that they use the word ships, because if you go through the unrevised histories, some of the unrevised histories, you find that a lot of ancient historians put the place of the Exodus in Mesopotamia, not in ancient Egypt. So you would have needed ships to travel between those two. And there was a lot of contention for several hundred years about where they would fix the location. So until they did, I think they were just covering both options. But yes, the word oniyot for this particular prophecy does relate to sorrow and mourning, and I'm sure that if you've ever read the book of Lamentation, it is just one great mourning and one great sorrow as Prophet Jeremiah laments what has occurred. So we have to be careful when we're looking at prophecies, and when we're being told that a prophecy is coming along at this particular time, or it's going to happen in a certain by a certain date or in a certain century. We have to be careful that we are not looking at spent prophecy. That is prophecies that have already been fulfilled and they're not relevant to our lives today. The only reason that they remain in the scripture was principally because they record and correlate a history, so that you get something in its context and you see that something was occurring and why these men were believed, because prophetesses and prophets were believed because when they made a prophecy, it occurred within a particular time. So you were using that as your calculation for further events that would happen. So the books were not just omitted because the prophecy had occurred, they were kept to actually prove that these men and women were prophets and prophetesses of the living God, Elohim, Elohim. You also have to remember, if we go to Hosea 4:6, I believe it is, we'll find the prophet lamenting, my people are being destroyed for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is important, and we're going to get knowledge from reading books. We're going to learn. As I said to you before, Moses, the spirit of Elohim wasn't just poured upon Moses. Moses was a man who was supremely well educated. So when you get the Spirit poured upon you, it enables you to understand that knowledge even better than you had done before. The other thing is that Elohim is actually providing us with the very best that is among us to ensure that we are not destroyed for lack of knowledge, because we're dealing with people who have knowledge. Now, many people say to you, I learnt nothing from anyone. All I learnt is from, what I got in the Bible. That's absolute nonsense. If this was necessary, the prophet Moses would not have been educated. the prophet Isaiah would not have spent 20 years studying what other men had learned, because that is what knowledge is. We are learning what other people have already learned, and then we are expanding and expounding upon that. But you do always learn from someone. So even when you get the spirit of Elohim poured upon you, it just heightens your learning. It gives you a certain skill set. Your research becomes phenomenal, but you do still have to learn, and you still have to read. And the only books to read are not simply the Bible. There's lots of books that you can read that will teach you many, many things. So we have to ensure that we're not destroyed for lack of knowledge, that we're not listening to people who are telling us things that are absolutely incorrect because they don't know what they're talking about. So we need to be sure that we are learning from the best, so that we know that the knowledge that we're getting, we can rely on it. I mean, there's some scholars that I read without even checking, because I can pick up something they've read it and think, yes, this chap's telling the truth. I'm not going to go and research everything that he's just said in here, because I'm pretty certain that he's done his job properly. And at other times you can pick up a scholar and think, this doesn't sound right to me. A tip is to actually look at his bibliography, look at the references that he's using. So if they're scant, then he hasn't really done his homework. But if there's a comprehensive bibliography that you're looking at, then the scholar has obviously done his research. There's no point or reason for you to research it yourself unless you want to confirm it. But that would also utilize a heck of a lot of your time. I started reading when I was 9 years old, and I've read 3 books a week. I've by now read thousands of books. So if you, my daughter reads 600 words a minute, and she can finish a book in a day, so she could literally read 7 books a week. But most people can't do that. My father read even more words a minute than my daughter, and usually read 2 or 3 books a day. He just gobbled them up. But I maintain my 2 or 3 a week. So if you go by 2 or 3 books a week, and you count, you've got 52 weeks in a year, by the end of the year, you haven't even scratched the surface. So you have to get yourself a collection of scholars that you can rely on, because they do comprehensive research and they have full bibliographies. So you're confident when you read something they've written that you're getting an accurate record. And of course, continue reading the Bible, but make certain at all times that you're just not jumping on a bandwagon. Someone has told you this, and and you'd like it to be that. That's not what walking with Elohim is about. It's about truth. You must be after the truth, and you must be seeking the truth, not some, we are the Habiru Israelites because we came here in ships. Go into that. What is the word? What is the Hebrew word there for ships? Did they go into ships to Western slavery, or are we actually talking, as the prophet Jeremiah explains to us, that the Israelites returned to Egypt, that Elohim had told them they would not return on that road again, but they insisted that they will return there, and they would not listen to Elohim anymore. So when they went down there, they were destroyed. Now another thing is with black slavery. This prophecy was prophesied in Genesis 13, 15, and right through 13, 17. A twofold prophecy. First, that there'd be 400 years of slavery, and second, that the 4th generation would return to Elohim. Now, black slavery is the only 400 slavery in history. Elohim fixed it like that to ensure that there would be no doubt. Now, that there was slavery in Russia, the Russians suffered slavery under the Mongols at 300 years, but there is no race on earth, that endured a 400-year slavery except the black race of peoples. Now, there is, and I'm just totally not aware of any historian or archaeologist that would tell you today that there was any 400-year slavery in ancient Egypt. There just absolutely wasn't. And most scholars and archaeologists are now fixed on about 215 years. But that was not the Genesis 13:15 prophecy. 15:13 prophecy, 15:13 to 17, let me just check that. Yeah, 15, 13 through to 17. And let's just read it while we're here. And he said to Abraham, know with certainty that your offspring shall be aliens in a land not their own, and they will serve them and they will oppress them 400 years. But also the nation that they will serve I will judge, and afterwards they will leave with great wealth. As for you, you shall come to your ancestors in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age, and the fourth generation shall return here to me, for the iniquity of the Amorites shall not yet be fulfilled until then. So that one prophecy fulfills black prophecy, and there's no other race of people on earth that can claim that they were slaves for 400 years and afflicted and oppressed for the entire period of time. That is the black race, and of this there is absolutely no doubt. But Elohim did not promise first slavery and a second slavery and a third slavery and a fourth slavery. The black slavery was just that 400-year slavery. Now, where Elohim spoke about the Israelites returning on the road of mourning and sorrow to Egypt, that was fulfilled in the book of Jeremiah as it stands. And when you do look at that word oniot, meaning sorrow or mourning, you will find that in the book of Lamentations, also written by prophet Jeremiah, also lamenting the destruction of the temple and the children of Israel being scattered. So we can't actually look at, and again we find it in the book of Isaiah in the context of mourning and sorrow, so we can't take it out of that context and just say, oh, that means ship. And as I said, that was the book I was thinking of earlier. It was Josephus, in his unrevised book. He does not put the Exodus in ancient Egypt, he puts it in Mesopotamia and the mountain that we were talking about there, principally because another thing that you can investigate for yourself, and you will find that it is true, the Yam Suf, which is the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds that the children of Israel allegedly crossed, only reaches a man to his knee, the water. So they would not have needed any miracle to depart from Egypt. That's the reason why it was moved in the 18th century. You'll find that it was purported to be Mesopotamia or southern Arabia, and finally settled on ancient Egypt, because at all times European peoples were looking for a land that they could point to and say, well, actually we were there. Under the Ptolemies they were definitely there in ancient Egypt, and for several hundred years. So that's where you got the mix-up of the statues and the monuments and things like that. Many Ptolemaic monuments are attributed to ancient Egyptians when they're not so. And another thing that you can find very easily is, where are all these Ptolemies that ruled ancient Egypt for several hundred years? Where are all their statues? Well, when you mix them up with the ancient Egyptian ones, you get a shortfall. So that's what happened. So you need to investigate thoroughly. You need to ensure that you're not being destroyed for lack of knowledge, that you're not jumping on any bandwagons, and check yourself as well. You might want our enemies to be destroyed. You may want them to suffer as we suffered and be oppressed in the same way that we oppressed, but at the end of the day, it will come down to what Elohim decides to do. And you have to seek the truth, because if you're not seeking the truth, you're not actually seeking Elohim. So remember that. Shalom, y'all.